And with me, I have the pleasure of introducing Martino Atem. And Martino Atem is a South Sudanese Canadian. Thank you so much for joining us on the show this morning.
My pleasure to be here.
It's not easy on a Saturday morning when you're like, let me just enjoy myself, and then you have to come out, right?
You know.
And when I was discussing with Martino said he has been here since 2001. And I'm surprised at the amazing things like contrast you're saying from what happened or having just one superstore, a Walmart, the different changes that you've seen so far. Let me start with that. Like, how has that change been from you? 2001, we're in 2025. Seeing Regina today, that's a very stark difference, right?
Like 24 years.
Yes.
My first experience coming here, I had my first night in Montreal on my way to Regina. Mm-hmm. And I remember it was like around 1 a.m. When I arrived in Regina Airport. I was wearing African clothes. It was like minus 30 something outside. But the students who went to welcome me from U of R, because I got scholarship through U of R, brought jacket for me. It was a different experience.
Wow. Well, we were lucky that they actually brought jackets for you, because that would have been very, very cold coming here. That you came during the winter months?
It was in January. It was
January.
Winter time, yeah.
Oh, and feeling that because in Nigeria here, we were talking with Kent earlier on before we started the show, and he was like, how are you experiencing the hot weather? I say, in Nigeria, it's quite warm. It's not cold. So that stark difference from a very hot, I'm sure South Sudan is very hot, to a place that is cold. How were you able to adjust?
The good thing was, for my first 2 years in Regina, I live on campus, College West, U of R. And so most of the time, I hardly go out. So I was staying inside on campus. And if I go out, it's always with friends. Some people I was sponsored by World University Service of Canada. And so there was a program, there was a group of students who will always assist new immigrant or new students at the university.
Did you also face cultural differences when you came here?
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things is like when they greet, for them they say this, and like a different time we say hi. For us is like come. So if somebody does that, like I will come. Like, another thing was I always stuck in and wear just African dress, and people like, what's the occasion? Like, what do you mean? What's the occasion? Like, so as a university students, we're supposed to be dressing well, but thus people are casual here.
Yeah, I like when you said that, because when we do this as Africans coming from our own culture, we experience the same thing. And the truth is that I also experience the same thing. Like, you're all dressing very corporate, like you're doing in your normal country, and it's more like you are overdressed. Basically.
Exactly. That's what people think.
And then the greeting also, you're like, because in Nigeria, like good morning, good afternoon, basically, and then you're like going hi. So it's a very more relaxed situation. Now, let's go back to, this has been like your journey into Canada. Let's talk about your work in Canada, because I'm seeing different things that you've done. You have also been in Saskatchewan Professional Aid Teaching Certificate, which is under the Saskatchewan Ministry of Education, Canada. So how was that? How was that experience?
It was like a license given to you after you finish your educational degree. So my first degree was in philosophy and world religions, which is religious studies. And after getting it, I went back to after degree program, U of R. After obtaining my Bachelor of Education, that's how the government awarded me the certificate in order for me to teach in Canada or in Saskatchewan.
Okay, so you're teaching right now in Saskatchewan?
I teach at Campbell, yeah. This is my 4th year at Campbell. I was a Winston Novel for 3 years.
What were you teaching?
I was teaching FIRE, like a special need program.
Oh, that's good. Now, you know why I'm going to bring this issue of education here. I know that you're teaching a different subject, but I've also met some people who talk about teaching African studies here in Saskatchewan and Regina. Has there been any progress when you look at the educational terrain in Saskatchewan or even in Regina?
I'm mentioning African perspective or African education. In my first degree in philosophy, most of the philosophy we were learning, most of the philosophers we were learning about were all Western philosophers. So I had to go to a dean and I said, we need African philosophy. So we actually introduced it. There was a class that African philosophy, but I had to provide books to the prop. It was really interesting, and I don't know if it's continuing or not. So when you look at education here, it's not only the African perspective is missing. I think it's the immigrant perspective is missing in the education. Some people come from refugee camps and they may not have the basic. Sometimes the kids may not have the basic of education. And here you put them based on age. And so sometimes it's a challenge for our kids. And that's why most of our kids drop out at school, not because they cannot cope, because they have no support in the system. And most of immigrants are always having 2 jobs or so busy. So another challenge that we are facing.
Let's talk about that immigration aspect there, especially for the refugees that come here. What are some of the issues that you have noticed that they face here, apart from the educational side?
One of the things, and I'm lucky, I'm on the other side of the aisle because I have my 2 degrees from U of R here from Canada, is like job experience. You need a job, they need job experience, and you can't have the experience if you don't get a job. So it's a challenge that new immigrants are facing in the country. So this is a big challenge. It's hard to overcome. The second thing is you may come with your PhD, or I have some of the one that come to my mind now is a Nigerian. He has a PhD and he's educational assistant because his studies are not recognized here. So it's a challenge for a new immigrant who come here with education back home. Wherever you are, it's always not recognized in the country.
Aside from the cultural differences that you experience as an immigrant, what other thing did you notice that you felt that they have not been able to handle for immigrants who come to Regina, Canada? Have there been any other things that you noticed for immigrants here?
Different cultures. It's like I come from South Sudan background, and still there are certain things that I don't know if I say it on air, but it's like we talk about polygamy. Where I come from, they have a polygamy. My family I come from a polygamy society. When you talk about it, people will turn an eye like, what? At this age and this time, it still exists. When I go back home, we talk about sexual orientation. It's a challenge for our people. So sometimes our people that is this challenge they have. Another thing for me that I engage with a lot of diverse people from African background, in particular in South Sudan. They always think that there's discrimination when it comes to education. That I don't feel that way, that there's discrimination. But parents are the new immigrant, they don't know the system and they don't know the help out there that their kids could access. And because they don't know that help outside the school premises, it's hard for them to support their kids. And sometimes they think that there is a lot of discrimination. Does it exist? Every community there is discrimination, And what matters here, I think, matter more than what you know.
Madam. Okay, than what you know. Now, when accepting the cultures of different people in Saskatchewan here, I mean, as an immigrant, you have tried to understand their culture, what they do, and try to infuse yourself. Do you feel that Saskatchewan or Regina has been welcoming to the immigrants' culture?
Very, very important question, and I think it's a good question. When I came, we were very few, as I said earlier before we went on air, that when I came to U of R, we were only 4 to 1, the entire African students at U of R. Now the question is, when you talk about accepting this, the problem is, do they understand? And how do they accept my culture? And how do I exhibit my culture when I'm a minority in the system? So this is not that easy.
Yeah, it's still a work in progress when you talk about accepting. I'm going to go back to your time in South Sudan, because you have done lots of works. Some people come to Canada or even Regina and they kind of lose touch with home. But I see you have a close touch with home. I've seen the work that you've done in South Sudan, and even some of the things that you've done. You're the president for South Sudanese Canadians Association in Nigeria. That was from 2017 to 2018. Let's talk about issues affecting South Sudan while you were still here in Canada. What has been some of the issues looking at political stability in South Sudan?
As you saw from my profile that I sent you, I not only am I engaged with the community in South Sudanese in Canada, in Regina, I go home and in one of the I put one project that I'm working on. 2010, I went back home and I was it could be called here the superintendent, but I was the education coordinator about six schools. So I go there and help them, and I did the last time I went there was 2022. You saw me picture that me standing, taking school, building school material, buying school material. I got that support from people in Regina, across there was somebody from BC who actually donated a good amount of money to help me build that 2 classrooms. So the challenges we are facing is we, the South Sudanese, let me say, we bring the problem of South Sudan here. This the political divide, you know. And
when you say here, you mean in Regina?
In Regina.
Oh.
Or across the world, what is happening back home is also affecting us here because we come from different communities. Even though we are South Sudanese, we have 64 tribes, and each tribe has their own concern. I happen to be from the largest tribe, which is the Dinka, and the Dinka is the ruling tribe at the moment. Not the ruling tribe, but the leader happened to be for the party that is ruling, which is called SPLM, happened to be from my own community. So people see that the problem that's happening in South Sudan attributed to me because I'm also from Dinka. As the Dinka person, so we are the people who are the source of the problem in the country.
You know, let's do a bit of education, because whatever we do on this show, we try to also let people know about the different countries in Africa. I've said there are about 56 countries in Africa. I'm from Nigeria. He's from South Sudan. And, you know, when I brought you in South Sudan, I first of all said Sudan, and I said, no, South Sudan. And I know that there was a civil war that separated Sudan and South Sudan. And then they got their independence in 2011. And, well, it's been good so far, but we're hearing recent stories of political instability going on there. But just to refresh people on how South Sudan broke away from Sudan, what was the major cause or reason, if you want to say it like that, for that breakaway?
Thank you. In the book that I'm working on, my first chapter, I call it the political Islam. Political Islam Islam was one of the major issues. Not religion, but people are using religion for their own interests. So we have a war between 1955 to 1972. That was 17 years. Then we started my father was a member of that freedom fighter. We had a peace signed in Addis Ababa, 1972, and then it lasted for 11 years. 1983, the Southern Sudanese went back to war against the North. Which is called political, and it's political marginalization, economic marginalization, and the imposition of the Islam, which is not a true Islam, but they were using Islam to get support from Arab countries or from Muslim communities. So after that war, I actually came to Canada because of the war.
Oh.
I went to North Sudan. I was there. I attended education there. Then I went back to university in the south, and on that Rotterdale, on that day, I still remember January 29, a lot of people died as we were running. I was just running like this. So went back home, I became a refugee in Kenya, where I actually co-founded women drop out or girls drop out school program in the afternoon, in the evening, and then after 3 months, I was teaching in the high school in the refugee camp. That's how I got scholarship to come here. So South Sudan came out of 2 civil war, 17 years of civil war, again another 21 years of civil war. In 2005 in Kenya, the peace agreement was signed. It's called Comprehensive Peace Agreement. In 2011, in January, we went for election, January 9, and then July 9, we went for a referendum in 2011, January 9, and then July 9, which is coming July 9, we became an independent state.
Oh.
So we become the 54th country in Africa, and and 196 member of the UN.
You see, I like the way you brought that. So now I can never forget the 54th country that became, and that because when I say 54 countries, yes, so now I know that South Sudan was number 54. And because of this issue that has been going on, I mean, for South Sudan to recover itself, you have lots of issues. And that's why one of the things that I noticed when I first met you was you were talking about debt cancellation for most African countries, especially those who are facing war and they're still struggling. So what exactly is that about, this debt cancellation? The
debt cancellation is like the South Sudanese, as we speak, with around 11 to 12 million population. The recent reports say that almost 4 million, around that, has been displaced, either within internally or to the neighboring countries. They are refugees.
As a result of the war,
As
right?
a result of the war. We went back to war. We fought ourselves in 2013, 2 years after our independence. And that was power struggle. For vice president and the president, they were fighting over leadership. And it turned tribal, even though it was political.
Okay, sorry, I'm just going to backtrack you there. So they got the independence 2011, and
Yes.
then there was a political war in 2013, right?
2013, we
Okay.
went back to war.
Okay.
The war that's affecting us, and that's why most of South Sudanese became refugees. And that is also called people who are still living in UN camps as we speak since 2014.
Wow.
Because of the war in the country.
And how have they been? What's the recovery process like AIDS and all of that? What's it like right now?
The aid, is another problem that we have. Not only South Sudan, but I think it's a problem we in Africa have. We depend on the aid, and that's the bad thing. The brain drain, I call it. All like you guys would be doing something for Nigeria or for African, we will be there, but because of the political situation, so the aid itself is very limited. It's only given, and who are working there? Majority are non-South Sudanese, are some people from the West. So they get hard currency, they get paid, they come back, and the relief doesn't go to the needed people, intended people. Mostly, sometimes it ends up in the middle, and the people in the middle, Yeah, and the politicians are the one destroying the country.
Now, I'm surprised that there are still people in refugee camps, because I saw another story where there's been a bit of stability. I mean, we're talking about elections in 2026 in South Sudan. So is that just a farce when we talk about that?
Something we need to see, that election. I'm one of the critic of the government, and the president happened to be from my own state, and I know him very well. He's a very great man, but the leadership itself, his leadership put him into a lot of problem with a lot of people, myself included. Like, people go for months and months without salaries. And so 26, we were supposed to go for election 2015,
yeah,
right after we became independent. The election that we had was 2010, when we were still Southern Sudan, we were still part and parcel of Sudan. Now since we became independent, we never had election. So 26, they said there will be election in December. I doubt.
So the support you're calling for right now, when you say debt cancellation, is that what? Like, if you want to put it out there, what exactly are you calling for?
We are appealing to the international community if they cancel the debt that the South Sudan has. We don't even know how much it is. I was looking up in Google, and like, South Sudan has the highest debt distress as a new country, and it's hard to pay back. And if you don't pay back on time, the interest accumulated, and it's going to be hard for the next generations to come to pay back that debt. What we need is, and the next government, to try to stabilize the nation, try to put people on work so that people can work and bring up their own economy.
Okay, so it's more of international organizations canceling the debt so that the country can grow, because even if they want to recover from this crisis and instability, they can't do that if they're still owing debt. That's exactly what you're saying, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, now I'm going to go to the treasures of South Sudan. You said what caused the debt was the instability that happened, right? The war.
Yes. Yeah.
So the war, when you say the war caused the debt, is it that because they were borrowing money from it? Like, how did the war cause the debt?
First, the politicians are borrowing money from international community to fund the war.
Okay.
Second, there is no stability in the country, and therefore people cannot go do their own business. No cultivation, there's no roads, and people have to depend on the aid that has been given from outside. So the debt that is, the people keep borrowing money to buy guns, people keep borrowing money to fund the war, to pay their militias, to pay their army. That's going to be on the shoulder of the next generations to come.
And what about those that caused the war? Any penalties for them? Because they are the ones that are borrowing the money.
Yes, but they are in power. And because they are in power, that's why one of the things they don't want to relinquish the power. Because if they relinquish the power, they will be held accountable. So that's hard. It's like, okay, if we say we can forgive you to that and allow us to continue with remove the we can let you go, but without without accountability, because they are afraid of accountability, and then they cannot let the power go, and they will keep us in that situation.
Okay.
So it's complicated.
That very complicated issue. We're dealing with political instability, refugee crisis, and now we're calling for debt cancellations for the people in South Sudan. Right.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, aside all of that, because we were talking about different issues that are happening in South Sudan, what is the most treasured thing in South Sudan that you remember? You are actually, I won't say remember because you go home frequently. So if people want to say South Sudan, because I don't want it to be just refugees, what's something precious in South Sudan?
Our culture.
Oh.
The love that we love each other. No matter where you come from, we have welcoming spirit. You go to South Sudanese house. The first thing is a drink. The second thing is tea. You have to eat with South Sudanese. So that hospitality is something that is hard to forget.
So give me one word in South Sudan. Give me a word in South Sudan.
Language?
Yeah, in your language.
We have 64 tribes, so I will give you a word in my language, which is Kibak. It's like a greeting.
Tibak.
Kibak, yeah.
Kibak, which is spelled as?
Shibak.
Shibak. Okay, yeah. Shibak. And that means what?
Greeting. Hi.
Hi. Okay, Shibak. Okay. All right, we're still on the Naija show right here on CATR 91.3 FM Access Now Community Radio. We've been talking with Martino Atem, talking about debt cancellations for South Sudan and the issues going on right now in South Sudan. I hope you will learn so much that South Sudan is the 54th African country. Just in case, I keep on reiterating, we have 54 countries in Africa. We're going to go on a quick break right now, and when we come back, we'll have more discussions. But for now, enjoy this one, and this one is from the Voices of South Sudan.